The dispute between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire over the delimitation of the maritime boundary between the two countries in the Atlantic Ocean is still ongoing at the International Tribunal of the Sea in Hamburg, in Germany. Ivory Coast is questioning the credibility of data and maps presented by Ghana to justify their claim over the 10 fields operated by Tullow Oil, while Ghana is arguing that if the court upholds Ivory Coast's claim over the boundary, Ivory Coast is arguing that Ghana cannot continue behaving like they are in their own home territory. So what's at stake for both countries? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. Hey, Charlie. Right, before we start our substantive issue, let's quickly do some update on the Nigeria elections. The results are coming in gradually from the election, which is tightly contested by incumbent Jonathan and Buhari, who are neck to neck. A few results have come out, about 8 from 8 states. Results from 8 states are out now, and Jonathan, good luck Jonathan, is leading by a slight margin. We'll be going to Nigeria now to speak to journalists there to give us an update of what is happening there in Nigeria. Right, we're still waiting to get Paul Turner, a Nigerian journalist, to get onto the line. So we get some updates on the ground in Nigeria, where keenly contested elections have concluded, and the Independent Nigeria Election Committee is coming out with results gradually. So far, 8 states. Now we are told Paul Turner is on the line now. Good evening, Paul, and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
So tell me what the situation is on the ground now. We do know that INEC is releasing the results. Some results have been released, at least 8 states we are told. Tell me what's happening now.
INEC is on recess. Indeed, they started releasing the results, but they've gone on recess, and the whole country is waiting for them to come back and continue the process.
So I know that the INEC has cautioned Nigerian citizens not to go ahead of themselves to start announcing results. But what does it really look like? Is it, are people anticipating that Jonathan will be retained or he will be changed for Buhari to take over?
It depends on who you are listening to. The ruling party supporters are busy jubilating that they will eventually carry the day. But the opposition are equally also jubilating that they will eventually carry the day. But on the look of social media, majority of the youth on social media seem to be taking the tune of change. They are hoping they will have a new government in place. But that is just social media talk. On record, out of the 8 states plus the capital, Abuja, Buhari is leading with 5 states, and Goodluck is having 4 states. And in terms of actual number of votes count, Goodluck is leading with 20,000 upwards.
So there are many of us, those of us in Ghana are keenly watching the elections in Nigeria, because we've had our own election issue which went to the Supreme Court. I'm sure you followed Ghana's issue. Is there discussion among Nigerians that this could possibly head to the Supreme Court of a sort if results doesn't favor one party or the other?
Absolutely. There is already grounds for that, because the opposition party are already crying foul and alleging a massive irregularity and mass rigging in Rivers State. As you know, if you have been following, there have been some protests there. People are protesting that their mandate has been stolen in Rivers State, and they had situations where they were confronted with police, tear gas and all that. So there have been some protests to that effect. And also, Imo State, the governor is saying that the elections were not done properly and should be cancelled. And the PDP ruling party is also naming several states in the north that they felt the results didn't go well, and they are calling for it to be cancelled. So there are certainly grounds for such a long and protracted after judgment, after election judgment.
Now, let's look at the 8 states that have come out so far. Are there a number which are expected to be Buhari stronghold or Jonathan stronghold?
Indeed, what is interesting is that in the 8 states that we are seeing, in 2011, a lot of these states voted for Jonathan. So that is why I was telling you that they are like the swing states. They can sort of tip the scale, and they have all gone to Buhari.
I see. So that's interesting. So what has resulted in this swing from Jonathan to Buhari states now?
Oh, because the place has already been an opposition stronghold. But in 2011, they fielded a candidate in their party, but jettisoned their candidate on election day and voted for Jonathan. So you find a situation where at the governorship local elections, a particular political party wins all the election, but at the presidential election, that same terrain had a different political party winning in that area.
I see. So how are the people reacting to this news? I know there's a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is high over the outcomes, etc. But beyond this anxiety, which I see the INEC trying to manage very well, how are people, ordinary Nigerian citizens, reacting to the results, outcomes of these results that are being announced?
For now, people are keeping, because what has been announced is too close to call. You cannot tell from what has been announced because it's only a small fraction. 8 states out of 36. So nobody's jubilating. Everybody's keeping quiet and mute and just hoping and praying that things go their way.
What about security? There were concerns that Boko Haram was toppling the election in certain parts of Nigeria. Now that the elections have been concluded and results are coming in, are there still fears and concerns that Boko Haram could strike?
For now, nobody's. I think now everybody's fixated on the election results coming out. However, I think I heard a report that there were some skirmishes in the northeast of Nigeria where some armed men came around and attacked a community to this morning. And so they were supposed to be militants. They came and attacked, and they had some issues there.
Right. So from your own coverage of the elections, I know that you are a journalist. What have been the key issues that you are looking out for as you cover the election and as the results come out?
The key issue is whether or not the democracy that Nigeria is practicing will be able to come of age where the citizens can indeed be able to effect changes. Because in Nigeria's democracy, an incumbent has never lost. So if this happens and the opposition wins, it will be the first time it is happening since Nigeria returns to democracy. So in its own right, it's unprecedented. And generally, voters had corruption on their minds and insecurity. So the idea is whoever wins is going to take those issues more seriously, tackling corruption and fighting insurgency and making sure that there's increased security around the country.
Right, Paul Turner, we're grateful for your time on today's big story. So Paul Turner is a Nigerian journalist who joined us from Lagos to give us update of what's happening. So we've got some of the figures coming in, and we'll show you. You can see on your screen we have from 9 states, Nasarawa and Oyo, FCT, Ondo, Osun, Kogi, Enugu, Ogun, and Ekiti. And it does look like of these figures, the total that have come out, Jonathan is leading by 50.21%, while Buhari has 49.79%. But as you heard Paul Turner say, this is only a few out of 36 states. So these are 8 that have come so far, and the results show a marginal difference of about 20,000 difference, which is not very much looking at the population of Nigeria. So we're We're keeping an eye on the Nigerian elections and we'll be bringing you more when, as and when they unfold. So far we have 8 states that have been announced, and it does appear that President Goodluck Jonathan has a marginal lead over the opposition leader Buhari. We'll take a break and we'll be right back to continue with the substantive issue for the day. Do stay. The 10 fields, that's the Trinidad, Enyinra, and Tome fields, are located in the Deepwater Tunnel license, which covers an area of more than 800 square kilometers. It's estimated to have about 1.2 billion barrels of deposits, and Ghana's legal team is arguing that it is within Ghana's territorial boundary. An external lawyer for Ghana puts Talos losses at $2.2 billion for the investment in the fields, which Ghana argues is about 50% complete. Now, according to the legal team for Ghana, Ghana did not consider it risky when it started granting oil exploration permits for the 10 oil fields because ownership of the oil fields was not in dispute. Cote d'Ivoire, however, Ghana is saying Cote d'Ivoire had full knowledge and never objected, and that Ivorian authorities exercised no sense of urgency because they did not raise any issues about Ghana's oil fields in 2007. Let's first hear the arguments that have so far been put forward by Ghana's Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Marietta Brew Apia Opong.
Uses tallow oil, one of its own concessionaires, of incompetence with respect to production. Tallow has been producing effectively for the last 5 years. Perhaps most surprisingly, Cote d'Ivoire did not mention its own explicit recognition of the boundary from the 1960s to 2009. With all respect, Cote d'Ivoire has not offered a fair or balanced account of the facts and has not attempted to bring this situation within the recognized framework of law established by this special chamber. The issue of alleged environmental harm was raised just 3 weeks ago in the few pages of the request for preliminary measures. We have dealt with it fully and comprehensively in the short time available. The relevant institutions of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have been working assiduously over a period of years to ensure that oil pollution preparedness and response measures receive the necessary attention in the region. Our countries, together with other West African countries, on their own or under various international auspices, for example, the IMO and the IECA, are already collaborating on a number of environmental projects. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, with other member states to the Abidjan Convention, are even now working together to develop a protocol for common environmental standards for regulating the oil and gas industry within the region. We are committed to ensuring that oil exploration and extraction takes place within the framework of standards set out in the Convention. None of this is acknowledged by Cote d'Ivoire, and instead, it has chosen to make unfounded allegations against Ghana in respect of our regulatory system, as well as equally unfounded allegations against one of our partner companies. We respectfully invite you to firmly reject these allegations. I turn to the impact on Ghana of the provision.
Right, so that's Ghana's Attorney General. We'll be bringing you the presentation of the Cote d'Ivoire legal team. But for now, let's get onto the telephone line. Dr. Kofi Mbia is the Chief Executive Officer of the Shippers Authority. He's also a maritime lawyer, and he's joining us now. Dr. Mbia, we're grateful you could join us. Good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
So what really are the issues of dispute here?
Well, I think clearly it's a question of boundary delimitation, you know, drawing the boundary between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire with respect to their territorial sea, continental shelf, and exclusive economic zone. I must mention that even though that is the dispute, what is now being attended to is the provisional measures requested by Cote d'Ivoire under Article 290 of the Law of the Sea Convention, you can put in a request for provisional measures. And when you put in a request for provisional measures, the tribunal first has to find jurisdiction. And once it has jurisdiction, which in this case clearly it has because it has started listening to the case, it then would look at the...
Right, I think we lost Dr. Mbia. We're bringing Dr. Mbia back onto the line, but let's now take the legal presentation that was made by the Côte d'Ivoire team.
We investigated the alleged slick, first through aerial inspection, which resulted in the photograph before you, then in an on-site inspection. The next photos show you what they found: seaweed. A lot of seaweed. Côte d'Ivoire also unsuccessfully attempts to tie Ghana's oil activities to the death of whales washed onto Ghana's shores. What Côte d'Ivoire does not tell you is that this sad event has also been occurring in Togo, Benin, and Côte d'Ivoire. Scientific investigation has found no correlation between Ghana's oil and gas development and the beached whales. What an investigation did find is that, quote, the dead whales beached on Western Region shores since 2009 would have very likely died in marine waters well to the west of the Ghanaian marine zone, end quote. That is Côte d'Ivoire's case on harm. As the evidence makes clear, Côte d'Ivoire's accusations are unfounded. There is no evidence before you of proven harm and no evidence of risk of harm, much less the serious, imminent, and irreparable harm required for provisional measures, which Professor Klein will now address.
Right, this is still a presentation that was made by the Ghana legal team, but we have Dr. Mbia back on the line. So, Doc, I was asking earlier,
yes,
what does Ghana want, and what does Côte d'Ivoire want in this dispute?
Ghana wants the boundaries to be determined by the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea.
But has that been in dispute? The Attorney General said that the issue of boundary had been settled 40 years back. So how is it that it's coming back again?
Well, I don't think exactly maybe that's what she means. Because you realize that Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire have held several meetings, you know, I think about 10 in which they've been unable to reach agreement on their boundaries. So submitting to the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea was a way to get the Tribunal of the Law of the Sea point out the boundaries by way of delimitation, Ghana's boundaries and then Côte d'Ivoire's boundaries. So it is clear, and then that disputed area, it will be clear whether that disputed area belongs to Ghana or belongs to Côte d'Ivoire. So that is why the two parties are there before it law. I
see. So what is really at stake for both countries? I do know that Ghana has made substantial investments, up to about 2.2 billion in the Trinidad in Tome, Enyera and Tome fields, the 10 oil fields, and so it has claims that if the judgment goes in favor of Côte d'Ivoire, it might make losses. But has Côte d'Ivoire also invested in oil exploration in this disputed boundary?
I'm sure Côte d'Ivoire may have done some investment, but I do not see it compares in any way with the investments that have been done by Ghana over the period. As I heard from the Attorney General in her remarks, in her argument, I think it's quite clear that Ghana has done substantial investment in that area. And in granting provisional measures, remember that this is not the merit of the case.
I see.
This is provisional measures. In granting provisional measures, the court would look at whether irreparable harm, would be done to any of the parties. It would look at whether damages would be sufficient compensation to any of the parties. It would look at whether there would be environmental damage if it fails to grant the provisional measures. And these are things which the court will take into consideration. So all of these arguments, I'm sure, would come to the fore to show whether indeed there will be environmental damage, whether there will be irreparable harm to Côte d'Ivoire, and then whether they could be compensated for in damages.
I see.
All these are provided for under Article 290 of the Law of the Sea Convention.
I see. Dr. Mbia, I will ask you before I make you go. We are Ghanaians, so it's fair to ask. Do you think Ghana has a strong case?
No, yeah, Ghana has a strong case, but it's always a question of judges and their opinion and the balance of probability.
I see.
It's the evidence that is put before the judges that will determine. But I think that Ghana has a strong case. Right,
Dr. Mbia, we're grateful for your time on today's big story. Let's get on to the other telephone line and speak to energy policy expert Kwame Jantua. He's also a lawyer, though. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
I'm grateful because I know you were in a tight meeting, but you had to come out so you could speak to us. What does Ghana stand to lose if a decision is taken in favor of Ivory Coast? Dr. Mbia has already told us that what is being determined now is the provisionary measures. I hope I got it right. So beyond this, then what?
Well, we have a lot to lose if this case goes in favor of Côte d'Ivoire. First of all, the interest of the IOC would be a huge challenge because of the amount of money they've invested in this field, particularly the TEN field. The TEN field has huge resources in terms of oil and gas. And at this initial stage, if we lose that, it's going to dig a big hole in the oil and gas sector. For me, it should be a lesson to us in terms of depending solely on oil revenue. I think we have to be planning the diversity of our whole economic, how we earn revenue. I'm at the NDPC meeting today. And some of the issues, we're talking about in terms of a long-term development plan takes into consideration how we can diversify some of these revenues into...
So, Mr. Jantua, if you say diversify, is it to suggest that perhaps you think that we shouldn't have started the exploration at the 10 fields at all and should have perhaps focused on Jubilee fields?
We started our oil and gas industry from exploration to production in 3 years. That was the beginning of our regime of oil and gas. We have started, we cannot stop, because the oil industry does not wait for anyone. And I'm not suggesting that we should stop or we shouldn't have gone into the 10 field. We should continue to explore, but we should do it in such a way that the revenues that are coming out are being diversified into other areas that would make it holistic. As I keep telling you, I am not in favor, and I'm still not in favor of us putting 70% of the oil revenue into consolidated funds. I think we should look at that issue and look at it closely so that we can tighten the other resources other revenues we are getting from our traditional resources.
But Mr. Jantua, is this an underlying factor in the delimitation disputes between Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire?
It is not an underlying factor, but it stems from the lessons we should learn from it.
Okay.
That is the point I'm making. It stems from the lesson we should make out of such situations. But in terms of the Ivorian factor, one would ask the question, why now? Why now? The Maritime line has been with us for how many years now? Why now? Look, Côte d'Ivoire really and truly are not a oil and gas nation as we expect it to be. How much oil are they producing? 80,000 barrels a day. That is quite small for them. And they would push to get the 10th field because I still believe that there are other forces behind Côte d'Ivoire for doing what they're doing. Because really and truly,
and what forces could this be?
Definitely the French are in there. Definitely. Nobody can tell me otherwise. Nobody can tell me otherwise because the francophone countries are still run by the French to some degree. And yes, we're talking about huge deposits in that field. The case should be that we should make sure that the evidence that we produce to the judge, and apart from the evidence, the way we argue our case is very, very fundamental in us winning. A typical example would be our own William McCase, what the judges said. So the panel of lawyers we have should be well versed enough to be able to argue our case in our favor. But looking at the evidence, Côte d'Ivoire has no case. And I went to a few institutions last week, and a lot of the things they were saying to me was that most of the information that Côte d'Ivoire has come from Ghana, has come from our newspapers, has come from some of the things we ourselves have written. And so we should be very careful in future, because you see, the moment Côte d'Ivoire succeeds, who is stopping Togo from doing the same to us? Who is? So really and truly, you know, we need to be able to argue a case and argue a case succinctly that the judges will say Côte d'Ivoire have no case.
Right, Mr. Janto, we're grateful for...
In terms of them putting an injunction on production, I don't think that should happen, because if the judges do that, that's 2 years down the line where the IOCs are going to lose a huge investment. And I don't think it would be beneficial to anyone.
Right. Mr. Jantoa, we're grateful for your time on today's big story. Mr. Jantoa is an energy policy expert. My name is Stephen Anti, and thanks for joining us for today's big story. We'll be back with Joy News Interactive. Do stay.